Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. Welcome back to this episode. We are so thrilled to be here with you. This has been so fun creating the Elevated Life podcast together. I feel like the feedback that we've been getting is they love hearing us be so intimate and so close and so open and just having this conversation like they're getting to sit here in our closet with us and have this like cool, relaxed conversation that maybe you're not having in your normal everyday life because let's just face it, like maybe some of those people are stuck on drama or they aren't thinking outside the box. So I feel like the Elevated Life is really a space to come and have these conversations that you're not having in your everyday life so that maybe we can make it a part of a normal conversation.
You know, and it's just, it's the way like life is set up though, because you think about it. Whenever you haven't seen a friend for, like someone you'd have a deep conversation with, like your friend or one of those kind of people in your life where you connect and you've been there for a while. But when you see them, it's hard not to just ask them about their life, like just a few of the little bitty things, like what's been going on? How's work going? How's that friend? How's your kid doing? You know, are you still thinking about doing this? And you talk about that stuff and that kind of, fills in the gaps and all that time. And you never are like with them long enough to have that like deep conversation to get to be like, hey, why do you think we're here? And what's the meaning of life? And, is it really all about love or should we be doing something else? And like, does money really matter? And it takes so long to be around a person to like tap into that conversation. And it's like, I love doing this because like, here we are, we can just start the conversation there.
Yeah, our walls are already down.
Yeah. Cause it's just the two of us sitting here, talking to each other. And I wish we had more of those conversations because of when I look back on my life and I think about, what were the big moments and when I think about them, some of them are like kind of achievement moments, like when you graduate from school or, when you meet a specific friend and things like that. But the deepest moments were like moments of realization that happened during conversations or during a circumstance that happened and that brought something out. Because a lot of times in life, you don't really have that like wake up call because like I was saying, you have it on this peripheral. You're just talking about really general stuff like what are we going to eat tonight and how was your day at work today, and like it's just just on the outside and those deep level core layers, like some of the conversations we've had, like when we were on mushrooms and like those times when our life got really sketchy and we're like, what are we going to do? Or like, when stuff started really happening in the world, it's like those bring out new conversations that we normally wouldn't have. And those to me are those peak moments, that have been in my life. And they're times that like when I look back, like that was the beginning of a big change because it forced me to look at things in a new way. And it kind of maybe it made me question my own paradigm, like how I looked at the world, like, oh my gosh, I've been looking at it this way and that's not how it is. Like being able to sit here and do that with you is it's such a blessing because like we can just start right in.
Yeah, so I'm loving having this conversation and I'm loving hearing from all of the elevators. So thank you so much for your comments, for you subscribing, for you leaving your reviews here on the podcast to really get this message out into the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the love and support. We seriously appreciate all of that good vibes and sparkle magic, as I like to call it, being shared in the world. So, one thing I have learned with being with you over the last 14 years is that you like to tell stories. and you have a story for everything. And then I realized this cat is telling fables and like story, like there's a message in there. And like, I finally was on to you. It took about a decade, but I'm on to you, mister. And so one of the stories that I think has the power to transform people's perspective is that night we got trapped on the mountain. That totally, for me personally, I know you were affected, of course, but for me personally, that was the moment where I made the decision that I'm going to trust my intuition because it saved my life.
Yeah, one of the moments I was mentioning about, there was a peak moment in my life where a lot of things changed, and I began to really look at life differently. That mountain trip was one of those moments. And being there and experiencing that and going through what we did, it was just such a pivotal time because we came back from that, luckily, came back from that trip changed. Like, I knew life was going to be different. I mean, you could almost do our lives up until that moment and then our lives after that moment.
That's like after the mountain, like AM, like our
Yeah.
life after the mountain experience. Because everything shifted. I always say, like, everything changed even though nothing changed. Like, we still are, like, same people, same city, same job. Like, I mean, of course it's evolved in some ways, but most importantly, it's like the mindset shift. And for me, I have always beat to my own drum and followed my intuition, but I never before had it yelled at me so loud to help save our lives in that moment. And that was the moment I vowed to myself to follow my inner GPS. And wow, I'm just at a loss for words because if it weren't for that experience, I don't think you and I would be sitting. One, we almost wouldn't be sitting here if we didn't survive that. And two, like you said, it completely changed our life. And the change that happened really was following other people's opinions or paths and really starting to look inward for self-discovery and answers.
Yeah, I think up until that point, we really were looking and maybe even relying on other people to give us direction. What maybe our parents said or our colleagues or friends, whatever they said seemed to matter so much. And we were put on that mountain and sort of given a specific task, a live or die task, to where we had to learn to immediately trust ourselves and to use our own wit and our own intellect and our own ability to sort of persevere, to really make it through and make it down and get back to some normalcy. But I guess before then I didn't necessarily know that I had that fight. I mean, you got to think I had already survived that horrible motorcycle crash that, almost left one of my legs amputated. I mean, other things I'd already like brushed in with death, but it wasn't until we were there experiencing that I found a strength and a courage and a sort of a silence inside me that's very strong, that I guess has always been there, but I didn't know about. It woke up and in those moments came out and talked and gave me the exact direction that it wasn't like a schizophrenic idea, or it wasn't like a hallucination. It was just this like really deep connection with myself. And in those moments, nothing else existed. It was just that. And it made that moment, instead of being so afraid and so fearful, so peaceful.
So let's take it back, like how we even got on the mountain in the first place. Always me dragging us into some kind of adventure. When we had joined CrossFit, we met an awesome girl who had a summer home in Telluride, and I invited us to join on that summer trip with her, and she welcomed us. And I also invited your mother because I felt like she would be a great fit. It was the perfect time in her life. She was at a turning point, needed some inspiration, some time away, and I felt like she would connect with the friend that was in Telluride. So we impromptu, on a whim, like 1 week out, said, hey, we'll join you in Telluride, and started driving. And I think that's really where the journey began, is just how we got to, how do we even get to this mountain?
Okay, so we even got to back up further because what was important about our journey there is that prior to CrossFit, we did not have any friends outside of family and your salon clients. None. And of those people, we almost never hung out with anybody. I mean, it's pretty much nobody. And so going into CrossFit, which was early CrossFit days, this was before it got popular.
It was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, this is like, yeah. I mean, this is
2012.
If you were to mention CrossFit back then, like nobody really knew about it. No one heard of it. No one had seen the pull-ups and all that kind of stuff like that. It just wasn't a thing. And we were just looking for a way to get into shape. But what we didn't know was that when we signed up there, we joined a community. The people who ran the CrossFit that we went to were all the time doing get together afterwards, go eat dinner, maybe go hang out at a bar, go to a party, just be together, doing a barbecue, just doing something. And that was so new to us. So us, even going on a trip with somebody, and we'd never driven really far before. That never happened for us. We'd never gone on a trip like this before. That was not a thing. We'd never really been to Colorado doing stuff. Telluride, Colorado is a small city carved out of the mountains where it's basically one way to get in and it's one way to get out.
It's not over the mountain range we took.
No, it's
in our hybrid Prius C.
Okay, so to get from Frisco, Texas, near Dallas, where we live, over to Telluride, Colorado, is I want to say 18 hours, 17 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's a long drive. They recommend you stop in like Santa Fe, right? But we didn't do that.
We did.
We were CrossFit at the time, so it was like
we were CrossFit strong.
So we were like, listen, we're gonna be able to just push through. No, we'll push through. It's fine. I don't care if it's 100 hours. I can do it. It was like we had that kind of mentality.
We just had like the go-getter mentality, which I think is really important to share, because that belief in myself, the strength that I had built, my physical ability through joining CrossFit and putting myself in positions and challenging myself physically like I never had before, was the exact confidence and courage I needed to be able to step up and follow through with what my intuition was guiding me through on that mountain.
Yeah, so we end up getting to Durango, which means we're a couple of hours still away from Telluride. We get to Durango, Colorado, and we stop to eat. We're already kind of delirious because it's gone from, we left, early in the morning, so it was dark outside, and now it's been daylight and it's dark again. So we're all kind of stupid already. We have a lot of highway hypnosis miles where you're just kind of sitting in trance, not remembering anything, just like just running the tires. And we stop outside Durango and hit up a liquor store, and my mom wants to grab a bottle of vodka. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she gets a bottle of vodka for the trip, and we end up following the GPS out of Durango and turning into a place called Purgatory, which is, we later found out, a snowmobile trail. And it'd been raining that day, so all of the clay, all the roads were wet, and so we got to a spot where the GPS said keep going, but it wasn't a street anymore. There was no gravel. It was just like that, kind of red, rocky clay.
We drove over like a wooden bridge. That was the first moment where my intuition was like, sketchy, like what is this? Like this doesn't feel right. And then we proceeded to go down this muddy path because our GPS said keep going, and every turn we took at 5 miles an hour, I kept thinking, this isn't right. Like, this isn't a road. I kept saying to myself, this is not a road. I mean, internally, before, we went into panic mode.
Yeah, and now that's like replaying in my head. What I can remember the most is that we lost, there's no like radio. The cell signal's been gone for a long time because we're literally we're out in a place where it's pitch black. I mean, it's not like there's street lights and you can see stuff in the distance. We're on a mountain and it's black.
On a snowmobile trail.
If I look out the window, all I see is black. Like I can't see, we haven't seen a car or there's nothing. It's just we're on a mountain. And the GPS is just continuously telling us to go. And I remember we had one CD in the car and that's it. We had the Black Keys CD. And so that thing is just, I can hear it in my head.
It's like burned in.
Yes. It was just on repeat because it was chilly outside. I can remember how brisk the cold air was, just so brisk, and you could feel it. It's one of those deals where you can heat the car up, but you still feel like your hands are cold on the steering wheel. And so we get to a spot, and I've got to cross water. Now, Britt said we're in a Prius C car, so it's a little bitty tiny hybrid tiny car. I mean, we got it because I got tired of paying gas. And so it gets great gas mileage in the city, but it's definitely not meant to be on a mountain. I mean, it is,
Nope.
I mean, I can probably run faster than that car. I mean, it's just not what you'd want to have. Like a Jeep or a 4-wheel drive or something. Yeah. But we didn't know that.
Frisco.
This is new for us. Britt is from the country, but not mountainous. She's just from like, fields and farmers. Like I'm from the city, and it's just like, I'm not used to being here. I'm not used to snow. We don't know how to like do anything like that. And so being in a mountain was totally outside of our comfort zone, with my mom in the back now with that bottle of vodka that has come open.
Very handy.
And she has gotten,
She's gotten herself into it.
And so we start getting low tire pressure. My gauge goes off because where we're driving has a lot of potholes basically everywhere.
Not to mention the boulder we ran over through the river to get to the other side of the not road.
I hit a rock that I could not see. So I'm driving, I hit this rock and get the low tire pressure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I'm like, how much farther do we have to go? I mean, are we going to be able to make this? And then it just starts to get worse because we start to get up to a place where the car rolls backward as I go up. So as I hit the gas pedal, it's now muddy enough to where the car just slides, and I start to smell my brakes because I've been riding them quite a bit. And again, the tire pressure is low. And so you can feel the panic in the car. It's one of those things that's just, it's so silent, but it's so tense at the same moment. It's like you're waiting for the climax of the movie to come, and it's just like, it's like we were all right there, and I could feel the tension. My mom's in the back crying at this point. She's definitely a little bit hysterical. It's that sense of like, we definitely might die because we are continuously going toward the side of that mountain that doesn't have a guardrail, and we're not on a real road. And here we are in a car, and we are totally ill-equipped. I'm a great driver in the city, but we're in deep spots now.
We were so high elevated up on that mountain too. Like we had been driving for hours up the mountain. It wasn't just like, here we are. Like we had that destination on that GPS. We were 8 miles from the town of Rico. Anyone who lives in Rico, oh my gosh, like please put out a warning. Like don't drive over the mountain to get there. Like you have to drive around the mountain. And that was the moment where everything stopped and we had to make a decision. Like we cannot keep going forward. Like we literally physically couldn't move forward, and we all had to kind of stop and assess and make that decision and talk about it. And your mom was hysterical. We should stay the night in the car. I'm like, honey, there's bears. No, there's bears here. And that was when I think everything shifted to, if we can't keep going forward with someone else's direction, aka the GPS, then we have to turn inward for answers, and we're going to follow through. And that is what saved our life.
I remember that moment because there was a second where I've got to figure out how to save us. Here I am trying to captain this ship that's for sure headed for
sliding backwards.
Yeah, I mean it was terrible, and like it's terrible in the sense that it's out of control. Like I couldn't do anything better. There wasn't something that like I could like there was nothing I could have done. Like I was just at the mercy of whatever the mud was having me do, and it just nothing to grip that kind of ground. And so there was a moment though where I told everybody to be quiet and start breathing. And I never done meditation before then. I'd never been into that. I never really heard about what that was. But we all sat there and started breathing. And it was just long, slow, deep breaths. Didn't know what we were doing. There was no instructor. There was no one from Tibet helping us out. I mean, that person, it was just...
We didn't have our yoga pants on.
And that was that deep silence within. I heard that like nudging. You've got to stop panicking, and you've got to start deep breathing so you can relax and you can get back to knowing what to do. Because when we get in fight or flight mode, we make terrible decisions. Our adrenaline spikes, we're trying to get away, but I can't press the gas pedal faster or press it harder down to make it happen, or I can't, use the brake in a certain way or anything. And so in that moment, the only thing I could trust on was what my like true deep instincts were on top of what logical thing I had come up with to do. And that was the moment that Britt decided we need to turn the car around. Like this is not going to be we can't escape this. Like the car can't go up anymore. It's too steep now, and we're continuously sliding backward. And so Britt comes up with the idea, let's get out of the car and let's figure out how to spin this thing around, because I couldn't just reverse because there wasn't enough room. It wasn't a road where two people could pass each other. It was just me. So we have to figure out how to literally spin this car around by pushing it on both sides.
It's got to be about a 10-foot wide trail that is red, sludgy mud that's angled off the mountain. Like you've got side wall of mountain, so you're either smashing into a mountain or you're falling off of it. There's no guardrail, there's no nothing, and we are thousands and thousands of feet up. And we realized that every time Chris would hit the gas, he's like, "You want to drive?" "Oh no, and I don't even drive in our normal life. Like, thank you for being my chauffeur for 14 years, but like, not gonna drive." So I realized, like, if I'm not driving, then I have to push this car. And luckily I had developed like some mental toughness of like, I can do this. I'm strong enough to do this. And whether I was physically strong enough or not, I got out of the car, and that was when the intuition and the loud voice just took over, and it was roll down the car, or roll down the window, stand right here, tell your mother-in-law to shut up, get her in the back seat, tell her to take her seatbelt off. Like there were so many things that I just kept sharing. You've got to do this, do this, do this. And I remember pushing my entire weight of my body into the car as you would hit the gas pedal, and it would just slide sideways. And so I had to force my body into the back end of the car as you hit the gas and just like spun it in a 360 circle in the mud. And as you started to go down the mountain, it started to like lose traction. And I remember having to hook my arm in the window. I'm in Tom's, by the way. Hashtag thank you, Tom's. You saved my life because they were the best skis ever. Like started skiing down the mountain, holding onto the car. And then I had to pick my feet up because we were going so fast. And then we finally got to a place where you could slow down and I could get in the car. But that was that moment where we turned the car around and we had all made that decision. Like, we're going to travel back down this mountain, even though we knew we had an obstacle ahead with that river and those boulders.
Yeah, so we get back down, and we're standing at that river, and I know I can't do it the same way because the tires are even worse, the brakes are even worse at this point. They're definitely smoking more, and I'm trying to figure out that we have to cross this river because we cannot cross the mountain. We have to get back across. There's no way to not do this. And so I get out of the car and got the light shining on the river. I'm going to try and walk through it to find any kind of boulders that are there that I thought I could move them. I mean, I must have thought I was Hercules. I'm telling you, once you've been on the road long enough, you just don't make great decisions anymore. And so I'm thinking I can move these. So I get out there and I'm wading in this super cold water. I mean, I'm freezing out there. I can see my breath coming out. The only lights out there are the lights from the car. And I'm looking. And then I have that moment come over me where something's wrong. There's like a deep intuitive sense, and I just kind of felt that like hair stand up on my neck. And I'm like, and I hear a little bit of rustling, but it's not enough to like, it's not enough to just take me over. But all of a sudden I feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to get up. I've got to get out of here. I've got to escape this. Something's wrong. And so I immediately make it back to the car.
Yeah, and inside the car, we had the driver door open with the light shining on you, and your mom was in the back seat, and I said to her immediately, something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like I should honk the horn, is what I told her. And so I went to go put my hand on the horn. I felt something was wrong. As soon as I went to hit the horn, I didn't even have a chance to hit it. You stood straight up and started looking around and immediately started moving back to the car. And your mom and I both said like all of the hair on our arms were standing straight up. We could just feel like something's watching us. And you got in the car, you closed the door, and you said something was watching me. And we just lost our shit. Like, oh my God, what is happening? And we made it through that river. I don't know how we ended up, slowly getting all the way back down that mountain. And I just kept saying to myself, I remember there's a lesson to be learned. There's a lesson to be learned. But before we figured out that lesson, you had to take an emergency poop, and we had to take an emergency number one. And then we almost hit a deer, and then that trucker, and then we ended up in Silverton, Colorado in some 1800s hotel with literally Igor like scooting out of the back after we ding the bell, like straight up haunted movie, and we're in a hysterical like we just almost died, I don't know what just happened. And we told him what had happened, and he said to us, you know, a lot of people leave this earth driving up that road.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Really?
It was unbelievable.
I remember finally getting to Telluride the next morning and stepping out of the car and just being surrounded by the mountains and surviving it and just saying, I'm home. And something inside of me felt home. And I've never felt that way before. And I think the entire ride back, we made sure to avoid any mountains. And I just kept saying, like I said, that there's this lesson to be learned. There's a lesson to be learned. And it led me all the way back to coming home and seeing a psychic, because I felt like I needed to talk to somebody who, like, quote, knew something. And when I sat down with that psychic, she said, honey, are you intuitive? And I said, oh my God, it told me to come here. And that's when she said, honey, you have the gift and you should buy yourself some cards and start reading. And it's because of that awakening, that inner voice, and hearing that there's a difference between my inner mean girl calling me fat, and then there's a difference between that inner voice leading the way and nudging you outside your comfort zone.
It's a much different sound. And I think that that's really important, because a lot of people are living their lives in response to a voice in their head that is the wrong sound. So if you can listen to yourself think, if you can be aware enough to hear what's going on in your head and say, what does that voice sound like that I don't like? The one that's negative, the one that criticizes me. And then what does the voice sound like that praises me, that gives me affirmation, that lets me know that I can do it, that things are achievable? They sound always different. And I think one of the biggest realizations for me on that trip is that there is that silence inside of you that is always there to help you, to nudge you forward, whether it's a higher power or whatever, I don't know. But it knew the answer that night. It knew exactly what I needed to do, or what we needed to do to make it out. And it was listening to that voice that like changed everything. You know, you said when you got out at Telluride, and I remember that moment, you get out and you're crying, which was really interesting, because I'd never seen someone just get out of a car in a place they'd never been and cry and then say, I'm home. And I think that for years I thought you meant I'm home, meaning in Telluride. But I think what you meant, or what you're really saying, is that I'm home because finally I'm trusting me. Finally I'm hearing my voice. And so home isn't a place. Home is something inside of us. It's something that we can return to. We're always looking for something else. Something outside ourselves. Some person outside ourselves to give us an answer, to give us a reason to live, to tell us that we're worth something, to give us hope. But if you want to find home, it's in you.
What, are you trying to make me cry over here?
Oh, dang.
Shit. You know, not to mention my mom's stroke happened just a few months before that. So it was a huge upheaval and transformation in my life. And shit, Carmichael. Yeah, I think it was a life or death experience, and mushrooms. Why does it have to be those things that like really wake you up to who you really are?
Well, I think because every other moment that we live in convenience now. I mean, the rooms are air conditioned. We've got cars that will pick us up. We've got cell phones. We can talk to people all over the world immediately on video. I mean, it's incredible what we have now. And so those life and death situations we don't face all the time. There's no saber-tooth tiger coming in, gonna, I mean, hopefully not, unless you live in Australia. I know there's crazy things going on, crazy animals, but not here in the States. We don't have it as much. And because we don't have that, a lot of and we've got great drugs now. I mean, we've got drugs and alcohol and everything you can possibly take, and doctors and people will prescribe them or give them to you. And so we have access to too much. And so a lot of things...
I want to know who's giving them away.
Oh my gosh. And so the things that we're dealing with don't get pushed up to the surface because we don't need to discover them, because we don't really have a reason to change. There's nothing that's really wrong. We got the kids, we live in Florida, we're doing the normal stuff. And the problem is that when you have those big moments, it's an opportunity and it's a wake-up call. Because in those kinds of moments, you can find out who you really are or what you really need. The mushroom trip gave us what we really needed, but it didn't tell me how to do it, but it showed me what I really needed. This trip showed me, for one, breathing is the most important thing you can be doing, obviously. I mean, if you've ever tried to hold your breath, it's important. I mean, you can go a lot of days without food, long time without water, but man, if you hold your breath, you won't last, 20 minutes. It's over. Game over.
I don't think you'll last like 2.
And a lot of us don't breathe right. And so saying the deep breaths and doing that, and then hearing that voice inside me that had the right answers, and then seeing you have the exact same experience happen where you're trusting your intuition and us change. I mean, it's a life changer. There are those peak moments that happen in your life, and they only stem from deep conversations and crazy stuff happening to you. It doesn't happen reading it in a book. It normally doesn't happen, just being with your friends or doing the fun things or starting a business. It doesn't always happen that way. It's these deep, meaningful connections that are spontaneous. I did not want this conversation to happen in my life. I was not interested in that mountain trip. Same way I wasn't really interested in the mushrooms, and I wasn't really interested in that motorcycle accident. But damn it, those things have brought me more enlightenment than studying all Eastern philosophers and all the religions of the world. And it's those things.
You don't have to wait for trauma to make a change. So I want this story to be your wake-up call. Don't get trapped on a mountain to make those changes that you've been intuitively guided and nudged to make that maybe are a little scary. Maybe they're taking you outside your comfort zone. So I want to know, leave in the comments, share with us. Let us know, what is that turning point for you? Where do you need to create some change in your life? The Elevated Life was born to help you with the steps that you need to be able to elevate. Like Chris said, we had that wake up moment, and like we've been shown this new reality, but like, how do you implement it? How do you make it happen? How do you make the lasting changes stick?
That's a good question.
Well, the answer is hypnosis, bro, because you've been doing it for 21 years. And that is really like what we got ourselves into that made the biggest difference, and now we're on that mission to help elevate everyone else.
I think that hypnosis is just another tool like everything else is. I mean, it's definitely what I specialize in. I love it because it's a shortcut. Everything else I've done is so slow. I mean, when you look at the stats, like how long talk therapy takes to help you overcome fears and get over grief and all the, abandonment issues and things like that. You've dealt with a narcissist, like all that kind of stuff. It takes forever. It just takes too long. I'm not interested in stuff that takes a long time because I don't have a long time. I have other people I want to be dealing with. That's why for me, when I do my hypnosis stuff, I only see the person for 6 sessions for the most part. I mean, unless they just have something really, really fun that they want to continuously be doing. But like, it's 6 sessions. I don't want to do more than that. I don't want to do something that takes longer than that. And the only reason I feel like I found that is because of trying to recreate the visions that we had during our mushroom trip. Trying to turn myself into that person that I know that I could be. Because all change starts at the subconscious level. Conscious change doesn't work. If you've ever tried to diet and things like that, but then you smell your favorite food that you're not supposed to be eating while you're dieting, you know what that's like. You have that moment where you're like, ugh, I just want the food. I just want the food. Your subconscious mind's going, but I love it. But I love that so much. And so subconscious change is always the one you have to go after. Anything else just won't do. It takes too long. The repetition method takes too long. Affirmations take too long. Hypnosis is just fast. And so being able to find that and being able to utilize that is just the way to shortcut everything else.
And that's why we include all of the meditations and the guided meditations throughout the masterclasses in our membership club, because we know that's where the change actually happens on a subconscious level. So what's really cool about sharing, these tips and tricks in the Elevated Life membership club is that everyone can gain the knowledge, but not everyone is doing that deep transformative healing work.
Yeah, it's the same reason why when you watch a great movie or when you read a fantastic book, you change for 3 days. You went to that seminar that was expensive. Awesome. You changed for 15 days. You came back. You were gung-ho. You wrote in your journal. You did all the little workbooks. You had all the stuff. You met all the people.
You got your cool hat and your t-shirt.
You got all the business cards passed out. And now what you do is you have a stack in the corner of business cards of people that you'll never talk to. And the experience is gone. And it's because if you don't get a subconscious change, you don't get a change. The subconscious is such a heavy part of your mind that rules everything. They estimate that 90 to 98% of our daily activities are habitual. In other words, they're automatic. They're things we do without thinking about them. So your subconscious mind has taken over 90 to 98% of what you do every day. And the fact that we think we can change without changing that 90 to 98% is ludicrous. It takes specific methods and specific models, but once you do it, what's awesome is that change occurs very rapidly. So it's super exciting to be able to see a person who's battled with something for a long time. Maybe it's some sort of addictive tendency, or maybe they've just been sad. They just feel like they were born a loser and couldn't do anything. Like no matter what, they won't win. And that's just a deep-rooted belief they've had, normally stemming from someone who said it in their childhood, and then bam, they don't feel that way anymore. They're like, wow, I believed that. That was crazy. That was a really old belief stemming from someone who said some nonsense. Well, I was playing a dart game while I was 7. And then it's gone. And they realize I can change. So the truth about stuff is that at every moment you can always have a change. It's not something that you have to wait on. It is normally something that does happen spontaneously and not always in the timing that you want it to be. But if you want to have a change and have it stick, you have to change your subconscious mind.
Damn, dude. Like dropping the knowledge bombs here on the Elevated Life podcast. I feel like that wraps up today's like wisdom drop here and inspiration on really looking at your life and asking, is there areas that I do want to create change? Don't wait for it to get so bad that you're forced into that position where you feel like you're in defense or victimhood mode. I want you to be the leader in your life and take charge and take action in those areas that need attention, healing, transformation, sharing a little love and light in those areas of darkness that seem to be holding you back. This is about letting go of the past, being present, and building a future that you're in control of. Because if you can control yourself, then you can show up in the present moment and handle any situation that happens to you, no matter if it's your mom having a stroke or nearly dying on a mountain, no matter what life throws at you. If you have the tools in place mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, then I feel like that's what creates like freedom and stability and confidence in your true authentic self.
Well, here's the deal. You're stuck with yourself until you die. You cannot change it any other way. You're stuck with you. So you may as well make it to where you have the best chances at survival and of having a fantastic life. Not just, hitting the meager stuff, but doing things that you love. And figuring out on that mountain that you've got to trust your intuition, not only to save yourself, but to live a life that you're really excited about was the lesson. And everyone intuitively knows that. I knew that before I got on the mountain, but I didn't feel it. I didn't show it every day when I woke up in the morning. It was just something that oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, you should be joyous. Yeah, you should be happy. Sure, of course, yeah. You should learn to love yourself. Oh, yeah. But we take it for granted. And it's because we see all those great quotes that are out there. There's just too many great people who've said great things, and we've heard it so many times, we don't get it. And so life is always a process of coming back to what you already knew and understanding it in a new way. And that's what that mountain was. It was I already knew that. I already knew to trust myself. I already knew that me, more than anyone else, knows me the best. It's me. My mom doesn't know me like I know me. And my mom knows me, but not like I do. You don't know me like I know me. I can't even show you that. I've got too much. It's just too much for you to be able to experience. And so how would I ever, of course I love getting other people's advice. There's some experts in the world that can help you so much. Mentors, coaches, stuff like that. Those people can help you like a mofo, get you excited about life again. But the person who is always up on the chopping block is you. It's got to be you. You got to paddle your own canoe all the time. And you have to be excited about it because it's only you able to paddle it.
This is your life and you get to design it. So why not elevate every area with conscious choice and intention? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. If you love this message, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and review here on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. We appreciate the love and support, and we'll see you soon.
Adios.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life Podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.